Hi everyone. When I walked in, I thought, it's overwhelming coming to speak to 60 leaders in an Aspiring Leaders program, and then I realised I probably know half of you, and I've probably taught in the schools where some of you have been, so it's been fabulous. I think that it's leadership programs like this where you can hear honest and frank stories from a range of different principals who all have a different story to tell, and that you soon realise that there is not only one way to get to where you want to go, even if you don't know where that is, where you want to go. I too am a graduate of this Unleashing Your Leadership Potential program. I did undertake the program whilst I was a deputy principal when I was at Golden Grove High School, and I think it was that was in about 2016, 2015, I think, something like that, yeah. And at the time, the only reason I came to the program is, one, I'm a huge supporter of the SASPA organisation, but also it was to support two very new B1 leaders from my school, one who held a 5-year position and the other who was doing an acting B1 role, who were looking to really further develop their leadership capabilities and experiences. And I have to say that both of those people who graduated from the program, one is now a B4 leader at Glenunga, and the other is a B2 leader, and I believe still at Golden Grove High School. And just like you, they gained so much from going through the program. They loved the program because they say, and they say to me, and I also believe this, you cannot be what you cannot see, and I think that's the right way around. And it's also very true for me as well. So we always gain so much from listening to other people's stories and journeys and their examples and their experiences that can help us realise our own potential. And I have a very different journey, leadership journey, than most principals that you probably heard from. And I know that you've heard Jackie Van Rooyen this morning, and as she's fabulous, so I've got a lot to live up to, so I'm a bit nervous. But what the Unleashing Your Leadership Potential did for me to see what is possible when I heard the stories of other principals, and listening to a range of those principals and how vulnerable they were, and how some even questioned themselves whether and questioned whether they were making the right decisions, and not always confident in the decisions and being confident as a principal. And how some of them didn't win every single job that they went for. So they were good stories to hear, because once we start this leadership journey and then we're not successful in getting a job, whether it's internally or externally, it hits us hard. So, but there's a lot to learn from. Many of the principals that you've probably heard from haven't won every single leadership job that they've actually applied for. So I'm hoping that after hearing my story, it will give you hope that you can get to where the next leg of your journey, and it'll also give you the confidence to get to that next step, whatever that next step may be. And that next step may also be a sideward step, and that's how part of my journey ended up here at being a principal. We are in just an amazing, crazy, mixed up, challenging, difficult profession. Seriously, it is. It's challenging and it's exciting, and but it's just bloody hard work as well. And every day is different, and it's very, very exciting, and it is exciting to be part of the public education system, and I would be nowhere else. So, look, I think it's a real privilege I think it's actually a real privilege to be in a leadership position, regardless of which leadership position you're in. And more than anything, it gives us the opportunity to make such a significant contribution, not only to people's lives, but also the children that are in our care and all the adults that we work with. I believe in the greater good, and I always have, and some people here who know me know about my greater good, and I get a real joy helping others see and realise their own hopes and dreams, and building their confidence by providing them with opportunities to grow as leaders and teachers and to take risks without fear of judgment, going through those leadership journeys. So I'd like to tell you, that's part of my philosophy, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself now and what led me to being the principal of Roma Mitchell Secondary College. And I say that I went from a C to a B to an A. So I started as a coordinator, C. I went to a B, back in the day there was no Bs, but then to a B6, B6 leader, and now to an A9 principal, so C, B and A, so there's no right way of getting anywhere. Anyway, so Roma Mitchell, just a little bit about my school. Roma Mitchell is a young school, only a decade old. We have about 1,400 kids and about 150 staff, and the school consists of 3 campuses. A special education campus, a girls-only campus, and a co-education campus. Next year, as we welcome our Year 7s, the co-ed campus will be split into a middle campus and a senior campus, and it's all very exciting. The likelihood and the modelling indicates to us that we will probably grow to 1,800 students in about 2 to 3 years' time, so a very big school. And Roma Mitchell is a little bit different. We deliver the Australian curriculum at years 8, 9 and 10, but we deliver it through the framework of the International Baccalaureate. And there are lots of complications with the International Baccalaureate trying to marry the two together. But that's a story for another time. But my school also was successful in being authorised to deliver the diploma of the International Baccalaureate at years 11 and 12. And there's only a small number of public schools that do deliver that diploma. One of them is Glenunga International, who've been doing it for a very long time. And the other 3 schools who are just coming on board now and start delivering next year will be Unley, Aberfoyle Park and Nord Morialta. So Roma Mitchell started, we introduced the diploma this year, and it's a great program, but it's just another program within the school. One of the complex things about my school also is that it is a PPP school, and for those people, and many of you wouldn't know that, but a PPP school is a public-private partnership. That means that even though the education or the government owns the land that the school has been built on, the buildings actually belong to another organisation, which is what you might know as Spotless, but there's a parent company on top of that. And some of the new schools that are built are part of that public-private partnership, some of the newer schools. And there are complexities that come with being a PPP school, huge complexities, but also many advantages. So I know that many of you, when you actually have the opportunity to have a school assembly in the gym or parent-teacher night, somebody's got to carry the tables and chairs and place them all over the place and then pack up. Well, we don't have to worry about any of that. All we do is make a phone call and it magically appears and it's beautiful. So that's one of the benefits. Okay, so I know that I've also got 4 of my own staff here, 4 of my leaders here today, so, and because I believe in this program, and they have heard my story many times now, so, and they did promise that there wouldn't be any eye rolling or nodding off after a big lunch, so...
just eye rolled.
Did he?
No.
So just, I want you to know a little bit about me and what my beliefs about public education are, and me as a teacher and as an educator and as a principal. I've been a teacher for, and this is terrible, over 37 years. And most of those 37 years I've been in the northern area. My very first appointment was at a school in Elizabeth East, which no longer is there, and it was called Playford High School, not the Playford International, but a Playford High School, where I spent about 2 years. It was one of those schools that if you were able to teach there, you can teach anywhere. And I remember just being, like probably 20 years, 19, 20 years old, and, having a year 12, who puts someone in a year 12 class? Anyway, a year 12 class, and some of the kids were 18, so there wasn't a lot of difference between me and the kids. But it was a fabulous experience, and I also, I did really, really learn a lot there about myself as well. The kids were challenging, the teaching was hard, and it was, but I was young and inexperienced, and I didn't have a lot of tools in my, what do we call them? In my kit bag. But I did learn about my craft. But what I realised, and I hope it's different now, but what I realised is that all the philosophy and theory of teaching and learning that I did at Teachers College had absolutely no correlation to what teaching was really like. And many of you I know have similar stories, so I'm rather hoping that things have changed a little bit. I learnt about teaching and learning, as you did, on the job. And I learnt the importance of relationships and the importance of loving and sometimes pretending to love the most unlovable child in my class. And that was, and also really listening and learning from other teachers who were more experienced than I was. At the end of my contract at Playford, I was offered permanency, and back in those days, people just said, do you want a position at, Salisbury's High School? You can do that for the rest of your life. Anyway, so I was offered a permanency at Salisbury's High School, where I spent 10 years learning my craft as a 5-line teacher. I had, at that stage, even after those 10 years, I had no ambition or, in fact, any thoughts of being anything but a classroom teacher. There was certainly no courses or programs like this. In fact, I looked at the principals and the deputies and also the coordinators, and they were called seniors back then. And I thought that's what smart old people did. And and I knew that I never really wanted to be like them anyway. And you know who I'm talking about. So what happened back in the day was that after 10 years, there was something called, the department just one day introduced that if you're in a school for 10 years, you've got to move. And so there was huge problems back in the day. So everybody had been in the schools that they loved, and in really difficult schools in north and south of the state had to move. And so I was placed at Para Hills High School, and that was a temporary 1-year position. I was absolutely devastated to leave Salisbury's High School. I loved the kids, I loved the school. I didn't want my future to be determined by the department. I didn't want to leave my future in their hands, as much as we love the department. And lucky for me, I had some really, really great mentors and people who encouraged me to apply for a position called a business vet and careers position at Golden Grove High School. Well, that was back in 1995, and I had no idea where Golden Grove was, and was even less knowledgeable about what vet was, and this was about 35 years ago or something like that. So I had no idea what any of that. Golden Grove was this new suburb, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But because I was a business humanities teacher, I figured that I could learn what vet was all about. And because nobody else knew what vet was about, then I did well. And it was a fabulous position, but it was the first time after 12 or so, 13 years that I ever had to go for an interview for a coordinator's position. And I did have some leadership experience because back in the day, you were a 5-line classroom teacher and then you did lots of other stuff on top, but nobody ever gave you time to do that. So I did the school magazine, and this was before computers, and I did the school magazine for probably 3 years in a row, and I was the pastoral care coordinator or it wasn't a coordinator, it was just a pastoral care position back at Salisbury's High School. So I thought, well, I've got some things that I can talk about in an application, but not much. And lucky for me, I actually won that position. It was only a 3-year position at the time, and I won that position because back then they didn't know how long these vet career things were going to, they probably wouldn't take off, and it was just a little bit of an experiment back in the day. Anyway, it was a really fabulous, rewarding position, and I loved it because really I could make up my own rules because nobody knew what it all meant. And we still don't know what it means, and there's a new vet policy coming up, and so the same problems that plagued us back in the day are the same problems that are problematic now. So during my role as the careers and vet leader at Golden Grove High School, I think it was probably in about 2000, 2001, my principal at the time encouraged me to go for a regional vet and a vet enterprise role and I would be working with kindergartens and primary school teachers and secondary schools, implementing vet and careers and enterprise education. And as fabulous as that was, I never would have thought about it if somebody hadn't said, you know, Toni, I think that you should probably go for this position. So I never actually had any thoughts of my own about leadership. They sort of just seemed to have come to me. But that's a good thing. So it was a really terrific opportunity to work with a range of schools and teachers, and it was really fabulous learning for me as well. But I knew that I couldn't do that job forever. I did it for a couple of years, but I worked with some great people and learnt so much about industry and industry connections and the tertiary sector and the TAFE sector. But what I'm trying to say here is that, as with most of us, or some of us, it is only when someone plants that seed that we actually start taking note. And that's what happened to me throughout my leadership journey, or throughout my career. So it was at Golden Grove High School where, again, I was, when I went back, I was encouraged to apply for the assistant principal's role because the assistant principal was about to retire, and so people kept saying, Toni, we think you should go for that position. So I used to do what people told me to do, so I applied for that position as well, and that position was in things like student services, Aboriginal education, flow, well-being, international education, and of course never escaping student behaviour management. And over the years, as an assistant principal in the school, and I think I was an assistant principal maybe 5, 6 years, something like that, I had every year level from year 8 to year 12. So, you know, really getting a lot of different experiences within the school. So by that time, then what happened was the principal at Golden Grove High School went off and became a director or something, and so automatically the deputy becomes the becomes the principal. So then there was an opportunity, there was a window where the deputy position was available. And somebody said to me, Toni, I think it'd be a really good idea if you'd be a really good deputy. So being the compliant person that I was, I thought, well, you know, what have I got to lose? I'll give it a go. So I did that and I won that position. Temporary, you know, it was only a short-term position to begin with. I think it was about 6 months or something like that. And then when the position came up again, then I did go for that position, you know, the second time, and that was a 5-year position. And things change really, really quickly in schools, as you know. And currently at my school, I've got people winning positions all over the place, and there's vacancies and opportunities, and it's just, you know, it's a fabulous time to be in leadership at the moment, actually, because there's huge amounts of opportunities. So I was the deputy for about 7 years at Golden Grove. It was such a, you know, being a deputy is a fabulous, I think it's a fabulous job. You get to work side by side with, and I was lucky enough to work with a whole range of different principals who taught me how to be a leader and how to lead, but also how to work with staff. And really, really important, because at the end of the day, we know it's about relationships. I learnt from the fabulous ones. I learnt lots from the fabulous ones, but I learnt a lot from the not-so-fabulous principals that I worked with. And I think that I'm actually a better leader because of that, because I knew what I didn't want to be. And I also learnt a lot about teachers. Well, and I am a teacher. In my heart, I'm a teacher. But I learnt a lot about, you know, the teachers are the ones who do the hard yards in the classroom all day, every day. And they're the experts. And so if we don't listen and if we don't consult and if we don't take the advice of our teachers who are on the ground, then, you know, I don't think that we do our job very well in schools or being principals or leadership teams. So we do have to listen to our people. But I'm digressing. I was lucky enough also to get a taste of being a principal when I was at Golden Grove High School, when my principal did take a couple of stints of long service leave. So I was actually able to fill that position. I felt really comfortable because I knew the staff, I knew the students, and it was, not that it was easy, but it was a good transition. It was an easy transition, and I didn't feel overwhelmed. But also, so I got a little bit of a taste of it. But still, even though getting a taste of it, there was no thought in my head that I would ever want to be a principal. And once again, you know, there's always, there's a good reason why there's that saying, we should never say never, and I keep talking about that. I was extremely happy at Golden Grove High School, and I know that there are a couple of people here from Golden Grove. I was going to retire from Golden Grove High School, and that was always my plan because I just loved being a deputy and I loved the school. But nothing and no one prepares you for ageing parents. And when my parents needed more support, my partner and I moved down to the western suburbs, and I spent 2 years travelling up and down bloody Port River Expressway. And by the time I got to Golden Grove High School, I thought, my God, I've survived another day without dying on this road. So that was, you know, it was a crazy ride every morning. And but now at least they tell you on the screen when it says it's going to take you 45 minutes to get to Salisbury Highway because there's a little dingle. And anyway, it was shocking. Does anybody go down the Port River Expressway? Yeah, not good. Anyway, but some days, not bad. So maybe 3 out of the 5 days, not bad. Yeah. Okay, so in 2017, after doing this 2-year hike from West Lake Shore to Golden Grove High School, the Port River Expressway, I thought, I can't keep doing this. I was losing family, I was losing fitness, and I was losing friends all in the same year. Not really, but that's how I felt. Maybe fitness. Anyway, so a position came up at Henley High School. A deputy position, and it was identical to the deputy position that I had at Golden Grove High School. And I thought, well, I reckon I've got a good opportunity here. And I applied for it, and life became just a little bit more simpler for me, as it only took me now 12 minutes to get to school, and only one set of traffic lights, and then I was only 2 minutes away from my parents. But this was a side step for me. as a B6 principal, and a B6 principal is the highest level deputy you can get to for now. So I thought I had a good opportunity to get it, and I did win it, and I began that position in the middle of the year, so in second. I didn't read the job and person application properly, and I didn't realise that it started in the second semester, so I was horrified. I thought it was actually, and sadly, I had to go tell my principal, who only was there for 6 months, because he was a new principal that started at Golden Grove. I had to tell him that I was actually going in term 3. And that was hard because he knew that I was applying for the position, but we thought it started in the following year. So we'd have at least a year together. So it's a little bit uncomfortable having to tell him that I was going in a couple of weeks. But it was devastating for me to leave Golden Grove High School. I loved it there. And when I went to Henley, well, I loved it there as well, and lots of my Henley people are here today, and it was great seeing them. And you don't realise how much you know until you go to another school and you have to transfer your knowledge and your experience at a different site. And then I realised I can do this. I was doing this stuff at Golden Grove, and so it was a good transition for me, but a sideward step. So I thought, this is it. This is where I'm going to retire from. And Eddie Fabian, who was the principal there, I said, Eddie, this is it for me, because he kept saying, Toni, do you want to be a principal? I said, no, I don't want to be a principal. If I wanted to be a principal, I'd be applying for principal's positions. I want to be a deputy. I live in the area, this is where I'm going to be. So that was all well and good. And we had a good time at Henley when I was there, Kim, didn't we? Yeah, we did. But looking back now, the best thing for me was to move from Golden Grove to Henley, and I shouldn't have stayed at Golden Grove High School for as long as I did, and I stayed at Golden Grove High School for 22 years. So that was a long time, but while I was at Golden Grove High School, I obviously had the coordinator, assistant principal and deputy jobs. But it was while I was at Henley that an opportunity came up, so my story doesn't end there. So while I was at Henley, and this was in 2017, so I did the second half of 2017 and then 2018. And at the end of 2018, the principal's position at Brighton Secondary School came up. And it wasn't filled the first time. And then a couple of people said to me, Toni, I reckon you should go for that principal's position at Brighton Secondary. It's only 6 months. You've got a right of return back to Henley. What can you lose? And I thought, okay, well, it was only a 500-word application, a 500-word CV, so I thought I can do that. So I whipped it up. And then what happened was that, lucky for me, then I got that position. And I don't think that anything prepares you for, and I know that some of you are in bigger schools, but I've come from schools that are 1,300, 1,400. When I arrived at Brighton, there were 1,700 children at that school. And while I was at the top of one of the buildings looking down into the sort of amphitheatre courtyard, I looked down on the first day and I thought, shit. There's a lot of kids. I'm in charge of all of these kids. And then I had a little bit of a panic attack. But it was, and I was there for 6 months, and it was the best thing that I did. It was fabulous. When the 5-year position, and by the way, what happened was that not only was it daunting to have 1,700 children, but I was also taking the place of a high-profile principal who had been there for 14 years and had developed this amazing school with these amazing facilities. And so that was daunting as well. And I felt like a bit of a fraud. Like I thought, how can this deputy from Henley High School come to this huge school? And anyway, but it was great. I did not win the long term. When the position came up for the 5-year position, even though I wrote an application and I loved it there and I thought, I'd like to stay here. I put in my application, I went for the interview, as traumatic as that was, but I didn't win it. And that broke my heart. It truly did break my heart. And so then I thought, okay, well, stuff you all. I hated the education department, I hated the directors, so I thought, that's it. I'm going back to Henley, because I could go back to Henley. And when I went back to Henley, they welcomed me back with open arms, and it was great. And I said to Eddie, the principal, I said, Eddie, this is it, I'm staying here. And I said, I'm stuffed with all the bloody department people. I'm not bloody doing that again, not putting myself through that again. He said, right, no worries, Toni. We're happy to have you here. So then all was going well. And then at probably the end, I remember it was term 4, and I was getting these phone calls on my phone from somebody called Paul Newman, and I had no idea who bloody Paul Newman was, and he just kept saying, Toni, can you give me a call back? Well, who would answer a phone who would say that they're Paul Newman? I thought, anyway, Paul Newman is a director, which I found out later. Anyway, then what happened, so then I didn't return the phone call, because why would you? Because I didn't recognise his number, and I thought the name was a bit dodgy anyway, so... Anyway, and then Eddie said to me, he said, Toni, Paul Newman keeps ringing you and you're not answering. And he said, I think he wants you for something. And I said, what does he want me for? And he said, I think he wants you to... And Eddie said to me, he wants you... Is anyone here from Findon High School? Are you... No? He said to me, Toni, because we're all okay here, there's no... Yeah, what stays in here... So he said to me, Toni, I think he wants you to go to Findon High School, because at that time something happened and the principal was no longer there. Anyway, I said, I'm not bloody going to Findon High School. I said, I'm staying here. And I said, what's the point of me going to Findon High School? It's, Anyway, so I said, no, I'm not going there. So I never returned any phone calls. And then other people kept ringing me, and then they started leaving phone calls on my work phone on my answering machine. Well, I had no idea how to retrieve any messages from that answering machine. So then what happened was then somebody from the department rang me, who I knew, and they said, Toni, what's going on? And I said, well, I don't know what everybody's talking about. So these people were chasing me for about a week and a half. And they said, well, they want you to be the principal at Roma Mitchell Secondary College. And I said, oh, I thought they wanted me to be the principal of Findon. Anyway, so what happened, I met with Paul Newman at the Grange Jetty Cafe, and he brought along... You've got to love the directors. He brought along the site improvement plan, as if that was going to encourage me. Anyway, so he brought along the site improvement plan. He said, Toni, we think that you're a really good fit for this school. We think that, the work that you've done at Brighton, the leadership experiences that you've had at Golden Grove and Henley, we think that this is a really good fit for you. And I said, they broke my heart at Brighton. I'm not ready to do that again. He said, no. He said, Toni, what we'll do is we'll leave you in there for a year. You can see whether you like it. We'll see whether they like you and you like them, and we'll go from there. And so he said to me, look, and this was, I think, Friday, he said, have the weekend to think about it. So anyway, so then I went and talked to friends and family, and I talked to Eddie as well, my principal at Henley, and Eddie said, Toni, you've got to do it, you've got to do it. And then I talked to my family, and they said, oh, what a great opportunity. Somebody just tapped you on the shoulder, and, And then so my family and my brother said, you should do it. So then I went to my husband or my partner, and I said, Carl, they want me for Roma Mitchell Secondary College as a principal. He said, are you fucking stupid? Anyway, he said, why do you want to leave Henley High School and go to Roma Mitchell? And he said, isn't that further away? And you just, you've promised that you were going to stay at Henley. And anyway, and because at this stage I've only got 5 more years to retirement, so it was probably good for me to stay at Henley, 12 minutes away from home. And, you know, I loved the school. It was a great school. Anyway, so I made the decision. I thought, OK, I'll go to Roma Mitchell Secondary College. And at that stage, Henley High School wasn't as forgiving the second time having to leave. So, and they sort of knew that that was probably the end of the line for me at Henley. But, you know, it holds such, you know, I had such fabulous experiences there, and it's a terrific, terrific school. And this was actually like, so having spent 22 years at Golden Grove High School, I then spent, and I'm such a loyal person being in a school for 22 years, and then in the next 4 years, I went to 4 different schools. I was at Golden Grove in 2017, Henley 2017, 2018, then at Brighton, then back at Henley, and then at Roma Mitchell. So I am the most experienced principal hopper in the entire place. Anyway, but it was really good learning for me as a leader. By the time I got to Roma, I had all of these really big school experiences, and I had narrative and understanding and different structures from all these different schools that I've been in. And the reality is, I was in category 5, 6, 7 schools, and now I'm in the category, when I went there was a category 2 school, but now it's a category 3 school. But, you know, at the end of the day, kids are kids, doesn't matter whether they're category 3 or category 7, and schools operate very much the same, doesn't matter which suburb you're in, or, you know, anyway. So I began at Roma Mitchell in 2020, having followed another really successful principal, Sandy Richardson, and she had been the principal, and she actually opened the school. She was the inaugural principal of the school. And so it was not easy to walk into the school as the principal, because they all knew that I was a deputy from Henley. And many of the executive team that I have at Roma Mitchell have also been principals in their own right. So here I am, the deputy from Henley in the seaside suburbs, coming to a highly complex school, only having been a deputy and did a short stint at Brighton. And when I walked into Roma Mitchell, it was like walking into a pressure cooker. It was, you know, because what had happened at Roma Mitchell is that the school had been really successful, but had been operating the same way it had for 10 years. So all the procedures and policies that they had in place when they had 500-600 kids, they still had the same ones when there was 1,400 kids. And, you know, it was tough. Anyway, so when I got there, I could see what needed to happen. I was a little bit nervous about challenging some of the operational procedures and anything like that, because I knew how much love there was for the previous principal, who had given her life to this school and who built this school from the ground up. And I thought, how do I make these changes when people seemed, you know, like, well, they knew that it wasn't working well, but people didn't know how to change it or how to do things differently. So just as I was getting my head around the school, trying to learn another 150 names, because I had to learn 150 names when I went from Golden Grove to Henley, and then when I went to Brighton I had to learn another 150 names. So by the time I got to Roma Mitchell, another 150 names. I did, like, seriously, like, it's hard work. And I think I'm about 99%. I've got all the teachers' names at Roma Mitchell. I'm struggling a little bit with the school support officers, especially in the special ed campus. But, you know, having to get my head around another new 150 names, and then I couldn't remember what this one's name was and whether they were Henley, Golden. It was chaotic. Anyway, but also the International Baccalaureate, which I had no idea what the International Baccalaureate was about, complexities of a public-private partnership. Then, lucky for me, my first stint as a principal, or as a new principal, then we had the COVID hit. And COVID hit my school really hard, and we had an infection early on. Our school closed down, and I think it was it about April last year? Yep. And then we went through it again in October. Had another school closure, and we had to self-isolate. And leading a school during a pandemic is complex. My job was to keep staff and students calm and engaged and connected, as well as relay fears from the parent communities. So it was tough in your first year as a principal to have to deal with all of that. And I'm hoping that my people feel really sorry for me now after hearing this. But that wasn't it. And, you know, if a pandemic isn't enough and an international baccalaureate, then I was told that, oh, by the way, Toni, the school's getting $15 million to build new buildings for the Year 7s to come. And this was probably April of 2020. And being a smart girl that I was, when I was at Brighton, I started the process, and at Henley we started with architects the year before. So we're in 2019. So now I'm thinking it's 2020. Nothing's been done. I haven't seen an architect. I haven't seen a project manager. So then I thought, well, I'm going to ask the director. And so I rang up Paul, who's now become my best friend, Paul Newman. I said, Paul, what's going on? I said, I'm getting $15 million and I have to build this building and I haven't seen anyone. And he said, no worries, Toni, I'm onto it. So then a few phone calls were made, and then there was a rush with people coming to see me and saying, yep, right, we're onto it, Toni. And I had a project manager that turned up from the department. Well, she lasted about 2 weeks and then she was gone. So then we had to get another project manager. And but now I'm up to my 4th project manager. So it's been an interesting ride. And so we started planning and with architects in July, August of last year. So a year later than the 2 other schools that I had been in. So not enough to be a principal of a large complex school in the middle of a pandemic, then I had to make $1 million decisions in a short amount of time. And I quickly became au fait with architects speak and builders speak and 3 meetings every week. And for the past 12 months, I don't know if has anyone built a house here? Yeah. So you've had to choose every PowerPoint, every colour, every wall paint, where all the PowerPoints are going to go, what tiles you need for the bathroom. Well, think about doing that for, now it's no longer $15 million, now it's gone up to $24 million. So I had to do all of that as well, but unable to consult widely with staff because they wanted to make decisions right then and there. And I'm thinking, I can't do this. Anyway, so then I got a few of my executive people in and a few teachers, and so we're still going through that process now. But, you know, these are the things that principals have to go through, especially a very raw new principal. It was challenging, but very, very exciting as well. But I don't think I could have done any of this without the lead up. And the lead up wasn't just by role as a deputy principal or a principal at Brighton. The lead up really was when I first started my leadership journey back in when I was a B1 lead, the equivalent of a B1 leader. And that was, so, you know, the leadership experience that I've had has spanned 25 years. So, and I think being a new principal in a COVID challenge, those 25 years actually really, really helped me being able to be confident to make some of the decisions that I have made as the principal of Roma Mitchell. And you always, and in a COVID year, all your principals, you know, we have to think about the what-ifs and plan for it. And you always have to have, you know, no longer can we say, right, we're going to be doing this. We have to have a plan A, B, C, and sometimes D. And that complicates things even more. And people, and just because you're the principal, people look at you and think that you've got all the answers. And I'm thinking, I don't have all the answers, but what I did have that helped me as a new principal was I had SASPA colleagues, other principals in the from SASPA who were fabulous with me, and any time I had an issue or a concern, I would call them up, and I think I even called you up, Jane, a couple of times. I wrote to you. Anyway, so and I did that. So I used my networks really, really well and widely, and you know, because what people are looking at you for direction, and people want to feel comfortable that, you know, they've made the right decision putting, you know, a raw deputy into a principal's position. So all of that, so remember, I'm only still 1.5 years into being a new principal. So if that all wasn't enough with builds and COVID and all of that, then Paul Newman rang me again and says, oh, by the way, Toni, there's going to be an external school review and your school's being reviewed. And I'm thinking, how much can one person be? Anyway, so we got through all of the external school review, and that was fabulous because that gave us the vehicle to be able to make some really significant and good changes to the school. But also, you know, when I arrived at the school, they said to me, oh, you know, Toni, by the way, we've got $1 million. The department's given us $1 million, and we have to deliver the diploma of the International Baccalaureate. Well, I didn't even know what the International Baccalaureate was, and I certainly didn't know what the diploma, you know, what the diploma was supposed to be. But so we got through that, and there was this very rigid authorisation process where people were scrutinising the school, and you had to present documents, and it's like doing an external review, but doing it over a 12-month period. So that was tough as well. So I suppose from and if that wasn't enough, then Paul Newman rings me again and says, Toni, you have to get ready, we've now got a partnership review. And I thought, I didn't even know what an external school review was, and now I've got to do a partnership review. And so, you know, we did the partnership review. So I've had it all in the last 1.5 years, and I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but I want you to know the extent. Yeah, I want you to know the extent of what a principal needs to do in their school. And I thought it was just about curriculum and teaching and learning, but I have to worry about toilets and clocks that don't work in classrooms, and, you know, 13 people who are having babies at my school, and I have to fill all these positions. So it's never ending, and it's complex and it's hard, but it's fabulous. It is fabulous. So when I came into Roma Mitchell, are you going to tell me, rewind it up? I'm nearly there. When I did come into Roma Mitchell, because of my experiences in other schools, I could see that there really need to be some structural changes to leadership positions. And so we've been working our way through that, and it's actually very difficult going into a school and having the hindsight of what you've seen in other schools and thinking, you know, this stuff that we've got here is not working so well. So we've had to make some significant changes. We're also making significant changes to our timetable. We've got a new timetable next year. And we've also got a new a structure, what we call learning community structure, and some of your schools operate that way, but it's very different from our school. And I think that really, and what we're trying to do is break down that 1,800, that big school feel, into, you know, small parts, so manageable parts for the school. And I think that with my extensive experience in a whole range of schools and my 25-year leadership experience, I think that people trust me. I know that my staff trust me, and they know that I will listen, and they know that I will consult, and that they also know that I would not do anything that wasn't in the best interest for both the children and also for the staff. So, you know, we've been able to implement a lot of change for next year, and it's been very, very smooth, and there hasn't been any pushback from staff. There's been lots of questions, lots of consultation, but, you know, sometimes you get your agitators on your staff, and even though we had a few, you know, we'd sit down and talk to them, but, you know, when there's clarity and consultation and really listening to what people have to say and listening to their concerns, because some of these people have been there for a very long time, and, you know, so it's all gone down very well, and so really excited about next year. Also want to you to know that principals, and this is what I do. I don't know, and I'm sure all principals do it. Is that I create the conditions for teachers to be able to do their work. That's what I do. I create the conditions so that the teachers can also create the conditions for the students to be able to do their work. So that's what I think that my role is. And I remember many years ago that when I was a principal said, well, he wasn't a principal at the time, but he said to me that to lead your own school is the most rewarding aspect, will be the most rewarding aspect of your career. And I can now say that I truly, truly believe that, and he was right. And I don't know if you know Simon Fitzpatrick. Yeah. So he was the one that said, and I worked with Simon on a project, and he said it was just the most rewarding aspect of his career. And I truly believe it, and I also believe that it is really an honour and a privilege. Anyway, thanks for your time. I hope that I've given you a little bit of an insight into somebody else's journey, different from what you've probably heard, and I really wish you well for the end of term, and I also wish you well with your leadership journey. Mine was a little bit different, and in hindsight, I probably should have started thinking about all of this many, many, many years ago, because I love what I do, but I've only got like 5 years left in me. So, I hope it gives you some hope that if you're really keen, and you probably don't know you were keen because I wasn't keen, and even when I sat where you were for the Unleashing Your Leadership, I still didn't think that I could be a principal in my own right. I thought I'd love to do acting, the positions, but that was as far as it went. But I hope that I've given you something to think about. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.